Greetings. Father Mark signing on, continuing the course on the Fathers of the Church. Moving into the reign of Pope 29, Saint Marcellinus, Marcellinus, was Pope from the 20th of June, 296, through the 25th of October, 304. Absolutely nothing is known about his background, but as Pope, he assigned one of his deacons, a deacon Severus, to expand the tunnels of the catacombs of St. Callistus, which is a cemetery, underground cemetery. So this means a need for more burial space. So if you need more space to bury Christians, that's an indication that things were not going well. Marcellinus is also the first known to have been addressed with the title, originally a title of affection, the Pope. You know, like our Father, our little Father, the Papa. Pater is Father, so Papa is Pope is the like a diminutive, like an affectionate diminutive for that. The emperor, the tetrarchy was still going on, but the senior of them was Diocletian. The Emperor Diocletian's vanity could not tolerate any rivals to his conception of his own dominion. So on February 23rd, 303, he issued a decree renewing persecution of Christianity. No doubt also facilitating distraction and support for his rule, which was, after all, a usurpation. And he forcibly reunited all the fragments of the empire. And remember the roundups of Christians. This is for the Muni and the Ludi, the public games. Although these would be the Ludi since they're provided by the governments, is the homicide fest. And remember, for those, admission is free booze, free bread, and free murder. Watching free torture, murder, games, entertainment. A sanguinary feast for the sadist. His decrees of persecution included a new stipulation that Christians were to be tortured and forced to surrender their sacred books before being murdered, following the theory that without these sacred texts, the religion would die. This created a new problem for the church, that of the traditor. So the Latin verb trahere in the infinitive form means to hand over. So a traditor is one who handed over the scriptures to save themselves. And in the Latin, it's spelled the Traditor. Obviously the origin of our word traitor, but in the Latin it still had the D. The true nature of the catacombs of St. Callistus as a Christian graveyard was discovered, no doubt through torturing somebody. So the property was stolen by the government, as confiscated. After Pope Marcellinus was martyred, his remains and those of other martyrs were interred in a new catacomb dug in the grounds of a private property on the Via Salaria, owned by the Acilii Glabrioni family. And these are now the catacombs of St. Priscilla. The persecution of Diocletian was catastrophic. It was over such that it was over 2 years before a new pope could be elected. So the church was sede vacante during 2 years. And that brings us into the next century. So let's see. I don't know how to do this if I... Yeah. Well, the next one, Pope 30, is St. Marcellus, and he became Pope in 308. So, but there's a lot that happened. I can't just, probably be confusing to do it as a separate file. So I'll do this. I'll do the Sede Vacante after Pope Marcellinus with this file, and then do the next Pope, Pope 30, in a separate file. So during the Sede Vacante, after the martyrdom of Pope 29, St. Marcellinus, a sequence of events was set in motion which led, finally, to the legalization of Christianity. In 305, the Eastern Augustus Diocletian suffered a prolonged illness. He thought he would die, but he survived. But after he survived and was diminished, he never fully recovered, but he felt himself diminished. So he gave thought to preserving the stability he believed he had achieved through the Tetrarchy. So looking back on Roman history, the most successful model had been the adoptive emperors, who were men chosen as adults for proven merit after already having proven themselves, and approved by the Senate. So this is not a popular election, like the magistrates were elected, but they were elected by the Senate, or at least approved by the Senate. And in fact, you remember, we covered all this, that this system ended in failure only when the fifth of those adoptive emperors, Marcus Aurelius, stopped. He was followed by his son, Commodus, rather than an adopted emperor. And we saw Commodus was a dirtbag. Diocletian concluded that his careful administrative division of the empire into administratively 4 units, but those were they had dioceses in them, so 3 dioceses in each, and they had 96 provinces total divided among those. So it's a very highly structured. He concluded that structure would only endure by a combination of past lessons. Specifically, having a limited term in office, which dates back to the Republic, have a clear mechanism for succession, but one not based on heredity. And so, let's see. On May 1st, 305, Diocletian voluntarily abdicated as Eastern Augustus and persuaded his reluctant colleague as Western Augustus Maximian to join him to also abdicate. So they were followed by their respective Caesars. So their Caesars became Augustus, Galerius in the east, and Constantius in the west. And those two were each to designate a Caesar to replace them. And so the Caesar would run a fourth of the empire. Each one would run a fragment, and then the idea was that they would then later move up to become Augustus, and then appoint 2 Caesars, who after a time ruling a fourth. So that was the idea of the Tetrarchy succession. The new Caesars, and therefore designated heirs, were Severus II and Maximinus Daia, D-A-I-A. Passing over the son of Constantius, the new Western Augustus, and that son is the future Emperor Constantine, and passing over the son of the now retired Western Augustus, Maximian. And that son's name was Maxentius. Just, Maxentius, Maxentius. For our purposes, the important one was the new Western Augustus, Constantius I, Constantius Chlorus. Born in what is now Serbia, Roman Illyricum, around 250 A.D., he enlisted in the legions and, like Diocletian, rose through the ranks swiftly in that time of war, universal civil wars and high mortality rate among the troops. While in his 20s, he entered into a romantic association with Helena. She was the daughter of an innkeeper in Bithynia, born in Bithynia. St. Ambrose, later father of the church, Bishop of Milan, described her as a stabularia, meaning that she cared for the horses in her father's inn. So free, I mean not a slave, but working class, put it that way. Roman law did not permit marriage between persons of such different social classes. Nevertheless, on February 27th, 272, reproduction occurred, and they had a son, whom they named Constantine. He was born in Serbia, in Roman Illyricum, present-day Serbia, on February 27th, 272. And just so you have it in your notes, in case I forget, he he reigned as emperor from July 25th, 306, to May 22nd, 337, which is his death. So anyway, so he was born 272. 21 years later, in 293, his father, Constantius, was positioned to be named Western Caesar in the new Tetrarchy. For political reasons, he then discarded Helena and married. This is a political marriage. He married a lady, Theodora, who was the stepdaughter of the Western Augustus, Maximian. And with her, with Theodora, Constantius had 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. Theodora's grandson, through this marriage, would become the last pagan emperor and the last of the dynasty of Constantine to reign. And that was the Emperor Julian. He's called Julian the Apostate, reigned from 361 to 363. So we'll either get to him in this course or in the medieval course. When Constantius took up his duties as Western Caesar, with governance over Gaul and Roman Britain, he was greeted by a chaotic situation, owing to an aggressive, and at the time successful, 7-year uprising by the Celtic Britons, led by Carausius. And, all right, so, I'll just spell his name, Carausius. So the Britons, these are the Celtic Britons, so it's Britons. These were the people there when Rome first invaded the islands. Carausius had the credibility among his own people of a death sentence from the Romans on his head. Anti-Roman hostilities, or we'd say anti-colonial hostilities now, because this, from the Britain's perspective, this was an independence movement. They wanted to... Excuse me. All right. It was a call for a funeral. So, sorry about that. Let's see, that's us. The Celtic Britons moved to drive the Romans out. Began in 286. By 293, they had quarantined the Romans on the island within their fortifications and denied reinforcements from Roman Gaul across the Channel by successfully, blockading the ports, but not blockading with a big navy. They were able to deny landing. They kept all the landing areas under watch, and when they would see the Roman triremes coming, they would successfully oppose the landing, and so deny reinforcements. Constantius himself was repelled from his attempt to regain control of one of those ports. So he then resorted to the strategy used by Julius Caesar to conquer the Celts, the same ethnic group, at least related ethnic group, in Gaul centuries earlier, and was later employed by the generals of Claudius in colonizing part of Roman Britain. Specifically, they exploited a vulnerability opened by the manner in which Celtic culture evolved. So here we meet another ethnic group. Ethnogenesis among the Celts followed familiar descent group patterns up to the point of a tribal structure. But from that point, it diverged from other cultures we've covered. So instead of a phratry structure, like the Jews and Greeks, or moiety tribal structure like the Germans, or just a completely fabricated tribal structure like the Romans, the Celts in Gaul and the islands, the insular Celts, they say, insula meaning island, so it's not a pejorative term. The Latin word insula means island. So the population, the pre-Roman population in Gaul, present-day France, as well as Spain, were Celts, just like the Irish. Not just like, but part of the larger Celtic, ethnic group. But those Celts in the islands of Ireland and England were to distinguish them. They're the insular Celts, the island Celts. The Celts in Gaul and on the islands experienced higher population growth owing to the more temperate climate of the period and the rich soil in some areas of Gaul, plentiful prey animals, and coastal fishing on the islands. These numerically larger tribes then coalesced into constituent clans, with clan leaders in a position to demand a role in tribal governance, and possessing sufficient force, meaning enough guys with weapons willing to fight for them, to resort to violence when not satisfied. As a result, Celtic tribes evolved an oligarchic governing apparatus, with a clan leader wielding actual power, clan leaders wielding actual power, and only recognizing a tribal high chief in times of need, and granting him only transitory authority. So real power was with the clans. Structurally, Celtic culture clustered into a village paradigm, which made it amenable later in history to Christian monasticism in future centuries. The Romans proved adept at manipulating pre-existing feuds between the clans and at instigating new feuds, such that the Romans never faced, either in Gaul or Britain, a united Celtic nation. In addition to this strategic paradigm, the Romans enjoyed tactical advantages. First, the Celts proved unable to take Roman fortifications by assault. Instead, they resorted to burning surrounding fields, poisoning the water supply. Sometimes they could sneak over the wall at night to kill the sentries, then open the gate. But as far as siege warfare, they did not develop the engineering to build, to really take a finished Roman fortification by siege. In open field engagements, the Celts never developed the tight infantry formations which enable the legions to routinely face and overcome numerically larger forces. And third, Celtic metallurgy at the time was still Bronze Age, with Roman observers commenting that Celtic warriors were limited to swords and spear tips that often bent when striking Roman shields or armor. Unable to maneuver, so this is the background to Constantius. So now Constantius was unable to maneuver the Celts into a tactically disadvantageous position for them, an advantage for him. So he resorted to bribery and had, which resulted in Carausius, the Briton leader, assassinated by one of his own men, Electus. 8 years later, 305, Constantius finally made it back to Eboracum, which is now York in northern England. And you may recall that that's where an earlier emperor, Septimius Severus, had died in 211 during a failed attempt to conquer Caledonia, present-day Scotland. Constantius and his son, Constantine, were there in Eboracum when Diocletian and Maximian retired on May 1st, 305, making Constantius Western Augustus and leaving nothing for Constantine. There's no record of Constantine's thoughts at the moment, but subsequent events demonstrate he used the time to make a strong impression on the legions under his father's command and to form strong relationships with the officer corps. Constantius died at Eboracum, at present-day York, the following year, on July 25th, 306. The legions in Britain, later joined by those in Gaul, then proclaimed Constantine as Augustus, as heir to his father, ignoring the then only 1-year-old tetrarchy succession. Constantine secured additional legitimacy with a political marriage, marrying Fausta, Fausta. She was the daughter of the retired first Western Augustus, Maximian. Like his father, Constantine had a prior relationship with a woman to whom he was not married. Her name was Minervina. With her, he had one son, named Crispus. Constantine put her aside in order to marry the politically and socially important Fausta. With Fausta, he had 3 sons, each of whom would become emperor: Constantine II, Constantius II, and Constans. The following year, 307, Maxentius, the son of the retired first Western Augustus, Maximian, decided to proclaim himself Augustus, heir to his father. And he had enough of his father's old troops were willing to fight for him, that he could make a move for it. And he succeeded in gaining control of Italy. This state of chaos distracted attention away from Christians long enough for the papal sede vacante to be filled, which brings us to Pope number 30, St. Marcellus I. So we will pause here and then pick up with him next time. So thank you for your attention. This session is adjourned.